On the line with us right now is Thom Perez, the former U.S. Secretary of Labor, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, Democrats.org, of course, their website. And Secretary Perez, welcome back to the program.
Always great to be with you, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have three topics here that I'm curious to get your take on. GM, and now I understand that the Trump people are saying that in response to General Motors, Trump might put tariffs on foreign cars made, they're imported in the United States, with the exception of Canada and Mexico. So we got GM. You got the climate report, which is Trump is saying he doesn't believe at the same time that our country is literally on fire on the West Coast and freezing on the East Coast as a result of the jet stream disintegrating from climate change. And then the border crisis. I don't know where you'd like to start.
Oh, wow. Let's just go in sequence. I mean, it is a trilogy of Trump's broken promises, climate denial, denial of facts, lying again on what's happening in so many places. I mean, 1 week before the 2016 election in Michigan, candidate Trump said the following, Tom: "You will not lose one plant. I promise you that." Huh. That was Halloween 2016. Oh. "You will not lose one plant. I promise you that." And once again, workers get screwed while GM reaps a $157 million tax windfall from the Trump tax cut, that tax cut that was going to result in all this investment in workers, which was a crock of you-know-what. Yeah. That tax cut hasn't done a damn thing for working people. It's done a lot for large businesses and very wealthy people, but it really hasn't done a damn thing for everybody else. Yeah. And that is what we see this here with this announcement. We saw it with the Harley closing. We saw it plant. This president is a serial liar. His policies are hurting workers. They're not helping workers. And that is the reality of the situation. Yet another broken promise. On climate, it is remarkable that on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, they released the report. Why did they do it the day after Thanksgiving? They wanted to bury it. But you can't bury the reality that the West Coast out in Los Angeles, and I was there a couple of weeks ago, whether you're down in Los Angeles or, frankly, you're up in Sacramento, you're feeling the impact of the just absolutely tragic and preventable fires. And then he starts blaming other people. 90% of the land there is federal land, something like that. So don't start blaming other people. Look yourself in the mirror. This is just remarkable.
And a lot of what burned wasn't even forest land. I mean, you had an entire city, Paradise, that burned. And I mean, there were trees, but I mean, this is the result of years and years of drought, and that drought is the consequence of the jet stream, which is only maintained. It is kind of physics 101, like a cold front coming through. The strength of the storm is the difference in temperature between the air in front and the air behind the front, right? The jet stream is maintained. It's strong because the Arctic is colder than where we are. But the Arctic has been warming, 3 to 6 times faster than mid-latitudes. And the result of that is that the jet stream is falling apart, and it just kind of is drooling down over the United States, and staying, and weather patterns are staying where they didn't used to stay. And so instead of a 1-day rain, you get a 4-day flood. Instead of a, right, 1-year dry spell, you get a 4-year drought.
Or instead of that 100-year storm, you get 5 of them in 5 years.
That's right.
And that's what we're seeing around this country. And put aside the human dimension, which we should never put aside, of these tragedies that are caused by climate. There's an economic dimension that's mentioned in this report. And the economic cost of climate change, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, potentially something like 10% of our GDP if we don't take this seriously. So those aren't my numbers. Those are the figures from the report that was released by this administration. And then, I mean, the border. Now they're denying the use of tear gas. I guess people doctored the photographs.
Well, Trump has invented this brand new thing. It's milder tear gas. Now, according to the U.S. Army, they just only have one kind of tear gas. Everywhere, it's all the same. But I mean, this guy just, you know, he wakes up in the morning and starts, and he has to lie about whether he brushed his teeth or something. You literally cannot trust anything that comes out of his mouth. It is breathtaking.
It's unprecedented in our nation's history. This is the most dangerous president in American history. I've said that before. I'll say it right now, and I'll continue to say it. And it's not simply because of the topics that we've talked about today, Thom. When you erode public confidence in the media, as he has continued to do, fake news, when you are attacking institutions of government that are supposed to be independent, like my old employer, the Department of Justice, when you're crossing red lines on a daily basis, telling the Department of Justice who to prosecute, putting in as an acting attorney general one of your cronies whose number one mission is to undermine the Mueller investigation. This is a constitutional crisis that we are on the verge of, and that's why I'm very proud of what happened at election time, because the American people woke up. We had record turnout. We showed, Thom, that we can be a 50-state party again. We won seats in places like Oklahoma, Utah, South Carolina, Kansas, and elsewhere because we're competing everywhere. And what I find heartening is that while our democracy is on fire and it's a five-alarm blaze, people have awakened, and they understand that we have to participate day in and day out. And while we have more work to do, and we're working today as we speak in Mississippi, we're working down in Georgia. There's an important Secretary of State race there next Tuesday, and John Barrow needs to get elected down there, and Mike Espy needs to get elected today in Mississippi. We're going to continue to make sure we're organizing all across this country, competing all across this country. And now we're heading into a presidential cycle, and we will continue our efforts to make sure we earn the trust of voters that understand that we're fighting for the issues they care about. We're fighting for America that works for everyone. We're fighting for things like truth and facts and science and opportunity for everyone. I mean, the greed that is embodied in this decision to close these plants in the aftermath of a $157 million windfall as a result of that tax cut. That's just breathtaking. It's unconscionable.
Yeah, it really is. One last question. Speaking of elections, I don't know if you saw the op-ed I published last week. It was on a bunch of different websites, you know, Alternate and Slate and Salon and whatnot. But if you go back and you look at the exit polls from 2016 in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, numerous states, what the exit polls showed was that Hillary Clinton won. What the actual vote count showed was that Donald Trump won. And you know, going back to Paul Weyrich back in 1980, you know, famously saying, "I don't want everybody to vote." It looks like the percentage, and these were all between 2 and 5%, this red shift, and it was always a red shift. It appears that this is the result of voter suppression, of people who voted or who went to vote, not knowing that they'd been removed from the polls, and were given a provisional ballot, not being told that it would never be counted, and then told the exit pollsters as they walked out, "Yeah, I voted for Hillary," and not knowing that their vote would never be counted. And this accounts for the difference. What is the Democratic Party doing about this?
Mm-hmm. We're building, and we have to understand that we need to have a permanent voter protection and empowerment infrastructure. I think the historic mistake that we've made is failing to fully appreciate, Thom, that voter suppression is a permanent staple in the Republican playbook. You and I have played the Paul Weyrich tape on your program. I've played it probably 100 times before various audiences. Yep. And I've played it to make the point that wasn't a statement made in 2015 or 2018 or 2017. It was a statement made in 1980. Yep. And it reflected a philosophy within their party that we want to make sure that less people vote. The reason I just mentioned John Barrow's election a few minutes ago is that I have no doubt that 8 years of Brian Kemp, and I know Brian Kemp because I sued him when I had the Civil Rights Division. He is a co-chair along with Kobach from Kansas of the voter suppression permanent task force of the Republican Party. And I have no doubt that what Kemp did over the course of 8 years was responsible for Stacey Abrams' loss. I don't have any doubt about that in my mind.
Completely agree.
And what we have to do more of, and this is exactly what we've been doing, is to build a 24/7 voter protection infrastructure. We can't wait until a week before an election or a day after the election to be filing lawsuits. And there's a lot of folks that have been working on this and been doing great work. At the same time, we have to be building relationships because of our decentralized voting infrastructure in this country, and that's a separate problem that we ought to have a separate conversation about.
Yeah.
You've got to build relationships with county officials across the country. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to shake our head after all too many elections saying we should have won that, and there was hanky-panky that resulted in the loss.
Yeah, this is hanky-panky to the level of, in my opinion, a felony. Thom Perez, the chair of the DNC, former U.S. Secretary of Labor. Thank you so much, sir, for dropping by.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
Good talking with you. Thank you. We'll be right back.